welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. We're coming to you live from our annual convention and legislative summit in Washington, D.C. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Bret Tushaus, the Vice President of Product Management from Deltek. Bret, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having me once again.
Yes, I think we were talking, and this is the fourth time you've been on the show.
It is the fourth time, definitely.
So, if we were to turn back the clock to the first one, second, third, fourth, and we're going to talk about AI, right? That's really why we're here. Lightning fast speed, is that a good way to describe the changes that are happening in the...
I don't think lightning even captures it well enough.
Really?
Especially if you look back at the first one of these I did.
Yes.
We were talking technology, but we were not talking about the AI the way we're probably going to talk about it today. And
right.
The pace at which it's moving is like nothing I've ever seen, certainly,
right.
In my 30 years now in the industry.
Wow. So let's lay the field. Let's lay out the field. What has really happened? Like, what is happening now that you didn't really foresee? Or is this kind of like, hey, this is kind of where we thought it was going to go over these past 4 years?
You see ChatGPT coming onto the scene in a little over 2 years ago now.
Right.
And that's really the sort of the seminal point that changed everything. Yeah, AI was around at the time, but it was more traditional machine learning, that type of AI. And while it was improving and getting enhanced over time, it was not moving at the pace that we've seen generative AI go.
Right.
Since, like I said, ChatGPT came on the scene just over 2.5 years ago. That's really been the catalyst that has sped things up to the level that we're seeing today.
Huge push. So I know one of the concerns that firms have, and I think a lot of people have with AI, is data integrity and protecting your information, making sure that it's not used on other models. Can you talk about what's happening in that system and maybe what Deltek is doing, or however you want to talk through what that looks like right now? That's a big concern.
Right. There's so many facets of that when you talk about data integrity, because part of it, as you said, making sure that proprietary data isn't being used to train, getting outside of sort of the domain that you want it in. And the way I typically like to answer this question is, we're in an era of hyper-focus on terms and conditions, more so than ever before. Not that we should have ignored them in the past, but boy, I think it's more important than ever to really understand how all these tools that are out there are leveraging data, because some nuance in those terms and conditions, whether it's paid for version or a not paid for version, can have a big impact on how they're using your data and those types of things. So again, what I would say, hyper focus on sort of terms and conditions more than ever before.
Wow. Okay. So you wouldn't want your AI to say, hey, give me a quick summary of the terms and conditions, because it may miss something, right?
Miss something. That's great. Talk about in testing integrity, right? How smart is the AI to take it to its advantage? I don't know.
Well, I think it's a good segue, because then you think about, okay, we have this great AI model, this great AI system. Where do the humans come in, right? Where do they what are their touch points? What does that look like? What is, I hate to say it, the relationship between AI and a human and how that functions?
Well, I think probably the best way to describe it is a human in the loop, so to speak.
Okay.
From my sort of experience in many different facets, the most successful application of AI is where there is a human in the loop.
Okay.
And what that means is yes, AI can automate things. Yes, AI can serve up insights. Yes, AI can augment content creation. But obviously, to ever blindly, take that as truth and fact and whatnot, you need to have a human in a loop to sort of press that last button to make that approval, whatever the case may be.
Right.
All the things that Deltek is doing in terms of automation and whatnot, we're making sure that there is a human in the loop, not only to make that last decision, but also a way to review how decisions and insights were sort of established.
Right.
So that if I need to say, well, this seems a little odd or off, I can look at, okay, how did the AI, if you will, come to this conclusion? And I can, hopefully make it better the next time around. So again, that human in the loop thing, I think, is absolutely critical.
Right. And so if we think about human in the loop, and then I keep hearing this term agentic, right? The agentic future. The future is agentic or agent-based. Is that what's happening? Is there going to be a screen with the agent, and then you're the human kind of working and saying, do this, help me with this project? Is there a use case or anything you want to talk about?
Definitely. And it's interesting. You think about this industry, AEC, architecture, engineering, construction, the built environment, you often hear the term digital twin.
Yes.
And in the context of the AEC industry, we know what that is. It's a twin, a digital twin of a built environment that you can use to monitor and test and explore and whatnot. Well, think of a digital twin in sort of your day-to-day life. You've got this agentic AI being, if you will, that can do things for you, that can flag things for you, that can serve up information for you. That's one of the ways we're looking at it. You have your real self, but you also have your digital self that's doing work in the background for you, and finding things that you may need to look at, course correct decisions on a project, things that are popping up that it can tell you about or take action on.
Gotcha. So it's right there to help you along your way, your digital twin. It's like your better half. Hopefully not, right? It does its best to kind of replicate you, right? Yep. So I think I'm ahead of your education session today, which is transforming project management, how AI can streamline processes and boost productivity. I think we covered the boost productivity part, right? You have a digital twin doing everything. In terms of streamlining processes, what does that look like?
Well, it can come in so many forms, and that's sort of a key theme of the session that I'm delivering, in that, you look at AI and it can be intimidating. It's this magical thing that's out there, and but the reality is it's one of the most accessible technologies that I've sort of come across in my business life, if you will. And I think that's important for people to understand, because when you talk about increasing productivity, when you talk about streamlining processes and those types of things, the tools that are available, you and I can walk out of this podcast today and go sign up, use one of those tools, whatever the case may be, and be more streamlined within a matter of hours, if not minutes in many, many cases.
Wow.
And I think it's important for people to understand and look at it that way, because you can easily get scared off, if you will, or intimidated, because this magical, mystical AI thing is out there, and I don't really understand how it can help me. You don't need to know everything about AI. All you need to do is really get a start with it, and you'll start to see results.
So you're saying, like, hey, get started, give it a shot. If I'm an engineering firm and I say, hey, I'm ready to start investing in AI, I want to take the leap. I've read the case studies, I've done my research, I'm ready to get started. Should I just dip a toe in, kind of take it slow? Obviously, it sounds like we don't want to dive in, but you want to understand where you're going and almost have a roadmap for your own firm.
Yep. I think there's probably two things to look at in that regard. First is look at the tools you already have in place. Chances are you probably have technology in place that has AI embedded in it, whether it's Microsoft Copilot, whether it's some of the stuff that we've embedded in our Deltek solutions. Start with those types of tools, because they really work well to demystify it for your staff in terms of, hey, I'm already using AI and I'm using it in a pretty cool, powerful, helpful way. So I think that would be my first point. My second point is, find those small use cases, find those problematic areas that are impacting the business operationally, whatever the case may be. Typically, I suggest starting with an internal focused one, not a client focused one.
Right.
But find those use cases, those simple use cases that you think you might be able to solve with AI. Find the tool, apply it to it, and then use that as sort of foundational win to build on from there. I think those are sort of the two things that, if you want to, dip your toe in and get started, that's the a great place to start.
Okay. So let's say that you're already in AI, right? You're kind of you're further down the path than just dipping your toe, and you're like, man, where do I go from here? I feel like I've done everything I can with the tool, or I feel like I'm at a roadblock. Is that something that you're seeing? Is that are there other ways to go with it, or is it all encompassing? Is there even an answer to that question?
I think there's lots of answers probably, and it kind of depends on the company and whatnot. What I would say is there's, I think, two things there too. First of all, data. You've heard the cliche, data is the new oil. Yeah. That's even more the case in the AI-driven world, because let's face it, the AI tools that we're going to use tomorrow are going to be driven by the data that we're creating today.
Right.
So one thing you need to think about is how are you managing data within your business? And this can come in many different forms. One, use the tools that you have in place the way they were intended to be used, because if you do that, chances are you're creating data that's going to enable some AI capability down the road for yourself. But then I think the other thing is start to do an analysis of what data is important to your firm. And that can be anything from sort of knowledge that you want to capture from the people within your business, your own experience from past projects that you delivered, your domain expertise, and start to figure out how you can capture that in a way that you can serve it up through some sort of AI platform, which again are becoming that capability is becoming more and more accessible every day.
Yeah, I think accessibility is a key word here because it's easy to get started, like you said. So Bret, thanks again for joining the show. I want to give you the last word here. Is there anything else that our viewers or listeners should know about what's happening in we'll call it the environment of AI?
So we've talked about human in the loop.
Yes.
I think it's important to talk about those humans because we're at a time, there's all this rhetoric around, AI is going to replace people and eliminate jobs and all that kind of stuff. And of course, the cliche follow-up to that is AI is not going to replace humans. Humans that know AI are going to replace humans that don't. And I think every company needs to be aware of that. There's sort of the need for a hybrid worker, specifically in the engineering industry, that not only has the engineering domain expertise, but that digital fluency, so that they can be that human in the loop working with AI, but still have that industry domain expertise to bring to the table as well. So I think, how we look at humans in terms of the knowledge workers coming into our business is going to need to change a little bit because we're looking for different qualifications than we used to be.
That's an interesting point. I know we're going to wrap it up, but let's talk workforce just for a moment, because I think that plays into what's happening from a workforce perspective within the industry. Trying to fill new engineering jobs, backfill has been, it's an issue right now. So is AI a partial solution to that problem and that hybrid worker that you're talking about?
As you said, I think you said it right. It's a partial solution. I don't think it's the solution, but it's definitely a partial solution.
Okay.
There's no doubt AI can automate things to require a few less resources. That doesn't eliminate the need for domain expertise, but definitely can streamline things to maybe lighten the load for those positions that we're having trouble filling because of the workforce challenges that are out there.
Right. Well, Bret, again, thank you so much for joining the show for a fourth time. I hope to see you at Fall Conference in San Diego. You can't turn on an invite to that. We'll talk again.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Bret.
Right.
And again, this has been an episode of Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all of our channels. We'll see you next time.